Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Chorengel, and I'm a co-managing partner at the RISE Fund, which is a $5 billion global impact investing fund founded by the alternative asset firm TPG. We are proud sponsors of the Aspen Ideas, and as impact investors, we couldn't be more aligned with the mission of supporting innovative and mission-driven entrepreneurs who are building great businesses that are geared towards solving the world's great social and environmental problems. And I'm here today with David Yeung, who is the founder and CEO of Green Monday. And David is a shining example of one of these entrepreneurs who's taking on one of the toughest problems we face as a society, which is the problem of climate change. So let's get right to the conversation. David is joining us this morning from Hong Kong. And David, why don't you give us a story of Green Monday and why it is that you became so focused on climate change?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a great honor to share the story of Green Monday with this great crowd that are also very mission aligned and focused on the tasks and tackling some of the crises that we are all trying to solve together. We started Green Monday 8 years ago, back in 2012, when at that time, very few people, particularly in Asia, were talking about climate change, particularly the correlation between food and meat consumption with many of the sustainability crises that we are in right now. Personally, I've been a vegetarian for 20 years, and I've been following many of these news. The big impact moment for me was 2006. Two things happened. One, I saw The Inconvenient Truth, the documentary, but the other was the UN reports that really detail how lifestyle industry was unsustainable and the carbon footprint is more than all transportation combined. That was the moment when I said to myself that, wait, if this is something so urgent and important, but so few people were talking about it, particularly on our side of the world. So by 2012, I just said, just like many entrepreneurs, I guess, we always have this urge when we see a problem that we want to do something about it. So we set up Green Monday, which is a very holistic platform of food innovation, experience, advocacy, all combined to hope to tackle this mega issue that we are facing.
David, can you explain to us, and can you draw the linkage between plant-based food and benefit to the environment or benefit to society? What is the line that connects consuming more plant-based foods with making the environment safer and sounder? Explain that a little bit for us.
Now, livestock animal farming is extremely resource intensive. We're talking about a disproportionate amount of land and water that need to go into growing the crops to feed the animals, which of course need more land and water before they are slaughtered and fed to human beings. Now, the efficiency or the ratio is extremely low. We are talking about 10 units of calories into the animals and then 1 calorie of meat to human beings, or in many cases, maybe even lower. So what we are talking about is when we consume plant-based diets, or particularly meat analog, for example, a direct comparison between meat analog and the meat itself, we are talking about saving 90% plus of carbon emission, water consumption, and land use. And in the case of hog farming in particular, it is well published that the pollution from the manure, the waste or the lack of waste treatment of the manure from the hog industry is actually one of the biggest reasons for marine pollution. There are countless dead zones in many oceans and marine areas around the world because of the waste mistreatment of animal farming. So we are talking about multi-layer and multi-dimensional of environmental damages. Now, and from a health standpoint nowadays with hormones, antibiotics, it is well known that heart disease, cancer, and many of the health issues, not to mention zoonotic diseases that are happening right now, they directly cause threats to our human health.
Great. David, one of the things that you've said to me that I found really compelling is that climate is a global issue, but food is a local issue. So tell me about your unique approach to addressing food in the context of climate change, especially in Asia, and how did that lead you down the path that you're on today?
When we talk about sustainability, it involves all 8 billion people on the planet. Doesn't matter which part of the world, we face these crises together. Now, however, when it comes to taking action or trying to involve the public, trying to involve different, companies, organizations, or maybe even governments, now it does involve a lot of local action. Now, food in particular is one that is highly local. Obviously, for anyone who's well-traveled, we know. I mean, when it comes to flavor profile, palates, portion, types of food that we love to eat, cravings. I mean, it's all different. Not even around the world, but within China, for example. I mean, what people eat in Beijing are not the same as what people eat in southern China, in Guangdong. So food, even though when we talk about, reducing meat consumption, trying to shift people more towards a plant-based diet, for example, but we must address how people love their food in their local way. So it involves a lot of cultural heritage and also just, from a food history standpoint. It's not something that, if people in China loves to eat this, then you can automatically bring it to Japan or US or UK or the other way around.
So here in the United States, there's a lot of focus on alternatives to beef. Products like Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burger have become more available and more ubiquitous, and they're quite good. But tell us about what you need to address with the Asian palate. So is beef what we're trying to replace, or is it something else?
This is one of the stark contrasts when it comes to the food kind of geographical preference. In the history of Asia, particularly China, actually beef was kind of the very, very rarely consumed meat. Only until maybe the last 30 years when fast food becomes prevalent and popular among particularly young people. So in China, for example, 65% of all meat consumed is pork. Pork is animal protein, and that applies to many of the Asia Pacific countries. So when we look at this alternative protein innovation, the direction that we decided to pursue, it was a no-brainer for us that from day one, we would look at pork alternative, which led to now the innovation of OmniPork, which is our brand and our products. Now, under pork also, for example, Americans, of course, bacon is one of the most consumed pork products in the US, ham also. But in China, in Asia, very different kind of consumption. And one of the newest product that we just launched is our vegan spam, which is called OmniPork luncheon meat. And now for a lot of Western folks, when I told them that, hey, we have this exciting new product called the OmniPork luncheon, I mean, they look at me with this perplexed look. It's like, of all things, why would we develop, spam? But the amazing thing is in Asia, Koreans, Chinese, Filipinos, Singaporeans, Malaysians, we have this obsession with luncheon meat. It is in every household. Some people eat it like 4, 5, 6 times a week, despite the fact that they know this is not the healthiest food for them. So that, again, the cultural context is very important in leading us to decide what direction we pursue and what products we innovate.
Tell us a little bit about the importance of developing products like OmniPork as it relates to food security issues in Asia and in China. So there's a climate angle, there's a sustainability angle in terms of not being as reliant on pork, but talk to us also about food security, which is not well understood in the West.
We knew, and there are countless reports that have talked about how animal factory farming is not sustainable. There's so many angles that it is not sustainable. And one of the aspects is food safety and security. Now, when we start developing Omniport, starting in 2016-17, of course, we didn't have the crystal ball to forecast that by 2018, African swine fever would happen. But what we did know is that, I mean, this kind of practice is like a hotbed for virus, is a hotbed for all sorts of disease that are bound to happen. Now that is both like animal viruses or zoonotic diseases, such as what is affecting all of us on the planet right now with COVID-19. So not long after we announced Omniport in 2018, which already was greeted with great support, African swine fever happened. And pork price has been skyrocketing off the charts. Even like the latest number on a year-on-year basis, pork price has gone up 85% within the last year, within the last 12 months. Now, besides the price, it's about supply. So the quality or the numbers of hogs in China has dropped by half just within the last 18 to 24 months. We're talking about half of the entire hog population or supply is gone because this disease is fatal. So when we look at the system, the animal factory farming system, it is incredibly fragile and broken and vulnerable. I mean, any event, any black swan event with a virus, or of course nowadays with climate change, I mean, whether that is flooding or heat or drought, I mean, that could damage food supply immediately. And that is the reason why most recently, the Academy of Social Science in China announced that as soon as by 2025, which is only 5 years from now, there will be a food shortage of 130 million tons of food shortage just within the next 5 years. And that is a huge number. And that is just for China.
Tell us what you would consider success. So if you think about the movement that you began in Asia a few years ago to bring to the Asian consumer a sensibility around alternatives to the traditional protein that they eat, which is pork. And you think about where you are today and look into the future, what would success look like to you? What would you consider a great milestone for success?
One of the numbers that I'm very proud to share is that in our headquarters here in Hong Kong, where we started, we created the movement of Green Monday starting in 2012, which is to advocate everyone to go plant-based at least 1 day a week. Now, of course, they can go Monday, Sunday, the more days, the better. Now, back in 2012, when we start this conversation, this movement, we were treated like aliens. And the number of vegan, vegetarian, or flexitarians, like part-time vegetarians, it was below 5% at that time. Today, the most recent survey that we did, we are up to 34% of vegan, vegetarian, or flexitarians who are now actively reducing meats in the city of Hong Kong. That is 2.5 million people out of the 7.5 entire population. Now, that is a number that we look at as something that we are very proud of and a benchmark of success or KPI of success, because with every staff member who join Green Monday or any partners who come in and work with us, I tell them that we're not here just to sell a product, get more people to eat a certain brand or a certain product. We are selling change. We are changing people's mindsets. And of course, equally or more importantly, we're changing people's behavior. They are really changing the way they consume food and their attitude towards living in general, their choices on an everyday basis. So, I mean, that to me is the ultimate kind of, KPI or success factor. And we certainly are kind of scaling this impact across Asia and globally.
So everybody, it's been great to speak with David Yeung today, changing the way that the Asian consumer and perhaps one day even the global consumer consumes meat, and doing so with fantastic products, including a spam alternative that everybody in the world needs to try. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.